Hello friends, welcome to the third season of Grad School Buddy,
a show that simplifies all your questions about graduate school.
Hosting this podcast are Ebele Chukwumoye, an impact storyteller and development analyst,
and Chukwuebuka Amaji, a development finance specialist with a focus on the private sector of emerging markets.
Every 3 weeks, we highlight the voices and stories of people who have gone through the graduate school journey across different walks of life.
We hope our invaluable insights on this show help you make better graduate school decisions.
3, 2, 1.
Hello, friends.
Hi, friends. Chukwuebuka, how are you doing now? Hello.
Hello, you wrote here.
What is it? Oh, it's hello that we wrote. Oh, no verse.
Don't worry, I know what it is.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Okay, goodbye. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Grad School Buddy. Today we are joined by Imade. As always, I'll begin by reading her bio and then I'll turn it over to her to introduce herself. Imade Iyamu is an MBA candidate at Columbia University from Edo State, Nigeria, who is passionate about investing in access to quality education in Africa. She works in the Asset and Wealth Management Division of Goldman Sachs and as an instructor at Yale University under Yale Young African Scholars. Imade is the first president of the Nigerian Alumni Chapter of Junior Achievement, one of the largest youth-focused NGO in the world. She was recognized as a McKinsey Next Generation Women Leader in 2022. Imade, it's my pleasure to introduce you and to have you on this podcast. We know that as much as our bios speak to our professional lives and the many achievements that we are proud of, we also understand that it's not the entirety of who we are. So outside your bio, do you mind telling us something that might never make it to your CV or a cover letter, but it's a huge part of who you are?
Hi Billy. Hi Chukwuebuka. It's really nice to be here too. One thing that would probably never really have a strong reason to be on my bio, especially in professional context, might just be, I guess, my family. Like, I'm really, really close to my family. So my parents, extended family, everything, but most especially my parents. And yeah, they're just such a huge part of who I am in terms of I spent so much time with them, and not just as like in the context of my parents, but also just as people. And they have a huge, like probably the hugest impact on who I am. And yeah, I love them a lot.
Great, Imade. I think one thing that strikes out when I try to like understand your personality, I think you're one of those few people that have been able to combine professional life and still have a life, somehow balance it. How are you able to manage that delicate balance? Because it seems like you do it so well.
Yeah, because especially like as young people, the thing is you don't want to waste the time that you have now, which is the time that you should be building up your career, building up your professional base for things you enjoy in future, right? And I agree with that, but at the same time, none of that is sure. So nobody even knows if you actually make it to your 30s or 40s. Not to be fatalistic, but it's the truth. So many people better than you.
I'm laughing at you. Ebele and I specialize on being fatalists.
Like for real. And if you've seen life in the sense of if you've seen people who actually have a brighter looking future than you suddenly pass away or suddenly have this happen to them or have that happen to them, you start to realize that all of these things are really, really, really vain. Even the fact that you want a great career, that's a great goal to have, but it's not something that is going to, in the next 100 years when you're dead, people will be thinking about, oh, she really walked past closing time. There are things that people will care about that are more important than that. Things you care about that are more important than that, like family, friends, other people in general. So thinking about the things that will matter to you even beyond your career. But you also don't want to fall on the other side, which is you don't want to be too laid back and relaxed about things. A lot of people are type A, high achievers, so you don't want to. I don't think I actually have done a very, very good job of maintaining that balance, because I think I still end up tilting towards the work side of things, maybe in a 60-40 proportion. So I think it depends on what you're going through at the time. Right now, I'm in transition in a lot of things. So yeah, it's going to be work focused for a lot of things. But my ideal is to be more balanced. And that's just because there are so many things that I want with my life that constitute success for me. So I think it's just, and that doesn't just include work. So I think it's just a matter of knowing what success looks like for you, not just what maybe the world will push on you as success, or what maybe you just envy in someone else, or you see someone else getting accolades for it and then you want it, but does it really apply to you? Like, is this something that if you had it, you feel successful? Would you just be moving on to the next best thing? So there are things, I mean, that's still evolving for me, like what I consider success. Like I'm still refining it till I can get to those very core things. But I definitely know right now that success also includes having really great relationships with family, friendships. It's very, very important to me. It helps me stay happy, sane, and all. And I've actually been through a lot of periods of burnout, especially when I was working in a law firm. Burnout, and you don't really have much to show for it. So it's just, how can you, when you've been through stuff like that, and when you've seen other people's lives, and just ask yourself, does that look like success to me? Why not? And then from there, you just have to be honest with yourself. Like, what are you willing to falter on? Yeah, that's what I think.
Great. This makes a lot of sense. And when I meet people that I want to develop a long-term friendship or relationship with, I always try to understand what they define as success. What's success for you? Because I think it helps. It shapes a lot of things. Great. Thanks for that. And I think, yes, we sort of never arrive at the balance. We just keep trying to maintain that balance to the very end. There is no, I think it's always going to be a journey.
Yeah, definitely. Can I ask what success looks like for you?
Okay, yes, sure. So for me, success is just all about making the people that matter to me the most happy. So giving them the best that I can give them. And one is to be there for them physically here and now. So that's why I try to make out time so I don't stay in the same city as my family. So I have 2 days and I just rush visit them and I get back to my city. And people are like, oh, so why do you do that? Why don't you wait till when you go and leave, or wait till, when things are balanced and all that? And I'm like, you don't know what's going to happen. Life is so fickle. Live in the here and now. I don't want to work for the next 40 years. And then by the time I'm 50, I begin to travel around the world, and all that. Who says I'm going to be here when I'm 50? So currently, I plan to do like 8-9 countries every year. Like Ebele as well, I began something I call PSR. So, the way you have the CSR, corporate social responsibility.
Oh, personal.
Something called personal social responsibility. So with about 3-4 of my friends, last year we decided, okay, every month we bring out a certain percentage of our income, something we know that we can consistently do. It may not be a lot. When we are starting it, I felt it was too little. But then I began to see how people are so appreciative of even 10,000 naira, how people are not going to school because of 10,000 naira, 15,000 naira, how people are stuck in the hospital and all that. And it's really motivating. So I think that's what it is for me. Bele.
It was really nice hearing what success means to you both. Mine is quite linked to what you have both said. What's very big for me is being there for my people. Like, I'm a very terrible texter, but if you are in a situation, just like call me. I might not be the best fighter, but I'll be there. Like, and obviously it doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be financial, but I think sometimes people just need your words and people just need to know that you're there. And that's a very big thing for me. And, like I've already shared, education. My focus in life is like education and access to finance. These are two things that are very, very important to me. Most importantly, something that I know that is very dear to me is making life easier for, I would say, girls like me, in quotes, like the next generation of girls like me, by providing spaces for them to be their best selves. So that's what success means to me. So I know that when we started this podcast, we read your bio and it was very impressive. I'm sure anybody looking at you from LinkedIn or anybody who was just listening to this would be like, oh my God, like, how did you get here? And two things come to mind for us. First of all, consciousness, and then secondly is time. So 5 years ago, did you look at this profile and think, hey, this is what I want? And, what was that step for you? How did you get here? And when did you have the consciousness to start working towards it?
Yeah, it's so weird that you use the exact timeline that I think a lot of things started working from, which is 5 years ago. So starting from 2018, I graduated law school in 2018. Immediately started working at a law firm. And in 2019, which was shortly after that, I started feeling like I wasn't doing much. So in the process of recruiting post law school, I realized that in comparison to a lot of my peers, my CV was mainly just you have this grade and these degrees, law school and university, and then you have one or two internships here and there. But I felt like a lot of people had more extracurricular activities outside of school, just general activities that I didn't have. So I really wanted from 2019, and that was like one of my New Year resolutions, to deliberately do more things outside of what I'm supposed to be doing or what I'm assigned to be doing, that is work. So just looking out to where can I contribute and what can I learn and all that. And yeah, I actually made like a commitment in that year that I was going to start looking for all these types of opportunities. It didn't have to be like anything too big or anything so shiny or anything, but just anything that I can contribute to and even learn about myself from. That was when I started following sites like, I think the first one I followed was Opportunity Desk, but there are a bunch of them like that. There are even too many to follow. So I started following all these websites that have like opportunities, whether that's in like fellowships, jobs, just general opportunities, things I can contribute to, papers, submit this paper to this publication, just things that you can do just outside of work and things that you can kind of express your passions through. And I think since that year, I've just been doing that. And it's literally changed my life. Like a lot of things that I know and have done and that are a big part of my resume and my experiences are from those consistent applications and experiences and all that time. And I still do it even now, that I feel like I have more of a concentrated, because back then I would just apply to things generally. And from there you can see, okay, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that. That didn't work out, this is working out. And you kind of get a sense of what you care about as a person. You can kind of feel it when something is making you feel more interested, more alive than other things. And I think that just helps because you get to have exposure to so many different areas. You kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work. So in answering that question, I feel like there's a lot of consciousness to it. Definitely there should be. You shouldn't just be getting pushed around by the wind. But there's also a lot of, it just happens that way, which is when you do a lot of things and then you assess how those experiences went. What did you naturally click with? What did you notice that you were better at than others, or that people would say, oh, you're so good at this, or this is so good versus others, or that will just make you feel better. And yeah, it can be weird because especially as a young professional, especially as a recent graduate, a lot of things are outside of your control, but then you still don't want to just be getting pushed by the wind. So it's a tricky situation to be in, but honestly, it just gets better with time because there's no choice. It has to get better with time because unless you're just sitting around doing nothing, you're going to be doing something in that time. And the assessment of those experiences is going to determine, okay, I was good at this, I was not good at that. So let me double down on what I was good at, no matter what that is, because I have just an advantage of time in that. So yeah, that's I think that's a very shortened way of, did I know I wanted to build this profile? No, not really. I was just doing what I felt like was good for me. But I definitely knew that I wanted to have a more well-rounded resume. I wanted to have more international experiences. I wanted to have more, access to people that were just outside of, because another thing is, I guess this happens with law students a lot, can be very insular. All your friends are law students, everyone you know is a lawyer. But I really wanted to also get out of that and have like a wider network. And yeah, that was where social media kind of came in for me. I didn't start using like social media like that until like maybe 2018, and then started using it daily like pandemic time 2020. I mean, there was already the base of people I've always known, and most of those would be lawyers and law students, but also deliberately trying to know people from other fields as well. And then a lot of the people that are now in those circles for me are mostly people that work in tech or something. And yeah, I think those two things have been helpful. Just always assessing things like, okay, you do a bunch of things and then you assess where that worked, where that didn't work, and double down on what worked. Double down on the things that people bring to you as, okay, this is what you're interested in and this is what we think you're good at. I think social media has also helped me because I'm just not a very, very expressive person. I just rather keep quiet about a lot of things. So when I notice myself talking about something a lot, it's like my own signal to myself that I actually care about that thing. Normally, I wouldn't want to even say anything in general, but recently I think there was someone talking about like internships and people shouldn't get paid for internships because they're learning blah, blah, blah from them. And normally there's so many of those kind of training conversations. Today is a relationship thing, tomorrow it's family thing, and I wouldn't necessarily feel any type of care to like comment so much. But I just noticed I was commenting like more than once, twice, thrice, and that signals to me, like even within myself, that, oh, this is something I care about. This is something I should probably work on or think about. So yeah, I guess assessing yourself and assessing your actions. I don't think there's a balance of it because especially as Africans, sometimes it's actually just what is going on at the moment and what is good at the moment that you can fit yourself into, just because there are a lot of things that are good in theory, but maybe just not available economically on the continent. Like I knew people in secondary school who wanted to do like aeronautical engineering. I'm not sure like how feasible that is like within Nigeria or within Africa. You probably go abroad, that kind of thing. So it's like a mix of things, a mix of consciousness. You should always be conscious. No matter how manage you have to do things, you should still be conscious of it. Like you should still be thinking about, oh, how can I level up? How can I improve? But it's always going to be a mix of things. Even if you're a trust fund kid, your consciousness should drive it, but you should also be willing to be led, because there are some things that can blow you up more than what you had consciously planned for. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Imade. And what you said about how you started looking in places like Opportunities Desk, I always tell people to please sign up. Another great one is Opportunities for Africans. And you talking about, hey, I didn't really know that this was a specific profile, but I knew what I wanted out of life. Like you knew the people you wanted to meet, you knew the experiences you wanted to have. And also you talking about, how social media has helped you be more vocal about the things that you're passionate about. I mean, NSAS is a great example. All three of us, we are all Nigerians, so we understand the impact and the role that the social media had. So increasingly, there is that importance to kind of use your voice in spaces where you feel comfortable. And it might not be social media for everybody, but for people to find where that place is for them and for them to show up and speak as much as they can about the things that matter to them.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't have to be on social media to be vocal. I mean, there are so many people doing very impactful stuff that you've never seen on social media. It's not a gauge at all. But I agree with your point about we've seen the impact as Nigerians, but just even globally, we've seen the impact. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Made. I guess that for you also, so at some point, you realize that success might also entail you going for your next degree. So could you take us through your journey to Columbia? How was it? What were your plans when you decided, okay, I'm going to Columbia, or Columbia will be one of my choices? What steps did you take to realize this?
Yeah, sure. This is like one of my favorite topics. I love talking about Colombia. So I'll start from having an MBA in general, or the MBA process for me. I think that really started for me also in 2019. So one of the first things I ever applied to was the Venture in Management program by Junior Achievement Nigeria. And it's one of their flagship programs where people that either recently completed their NYSC or they are currently NYSC members, you get a 1 week mini MBA fully funded at Lagos Business School. Accommodation at a nearby hotel is funded. Everything about the program is funded, meals, everything. So I applied for that and I got in. Yeah, what do you say?
I say I'm so jealous. I'm beefing them because I applied and they didn't accept me, and I was working with LBS. I was.
Oh my God. Okay, maybe that's why though, because yeah, maybe that's
Okay,
why.
so I like the way you're giving him hope. So what's my own excuse? Because I also applied.
I applied.
No, because if you're
we're too
already
good for
working
them.
at
Don't mind
LBS,
them.
what's waiting again? Like,
I mean, everything I apply, but that's weird. I mean, that's by the way. And
But
in my
I
life,
feel like we all need a reality check. Like when you apply for something and you get rejected. So you go and sit down for 2
I'm
seconds.
like, the
bro,
audacity.
I was even saying it today. Okay, it wasn't today, but recently that when you're applying for things and you never really have, or you have like a high acceptance rate, which is like over 50%, you're probably not applying for for things that are really stretching you. Because I mean, for me, if I haven't checked recently, but like the last time I checked, I think I have like, I don't even know if this is oversharing. I think I have like a 10 to 20 acceptance rate. Last time I checked.
I mean, well, it's enough
How
to
much I get accepted? Like 10 to 20% of the time.
I mean, but you're like you did this this principle, the 80-20 principle. So yes, the 20% that really matter. I mean, Columbia, Goldman
Use
Sachs,
that one.
even BNI. I mean, like she was in the top law firms in Nigeria before leaving and stuff. So yeah.
But I mean, anyway, that whole experience, and I didn't know anything about like MBAs or finance or all these other functions. And it was such a transformative experience, not just in terms of what I learned, but also the environment. Like Lagos Business School is amazing. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. And also the kind of bonds I formed with the people who were in that class or in that cohort, it was so, I mean, they keep telling you, oh, you build connections with an MBA, you do, but it's a different thing to experience. And it was just 1 week. And even now, there are still some of my closest friends in that cohort. And I just knew at some point I do want an MBA. That was 2019. I barely had like a year of experience. But I just kept in the back of my mind that this is something I would love to pursue at some point. 2020, pandemic, a lot of people started rethinking their lives, including me. I started thinking about so many things. I felt like I had fallen into the groove of I was just working. I wasn't really stepping back and thinking about, oh, these are the directions that I want to take or any type of like strategic thought. It was just very tactical. Work today, work tomorrow, rest on weekend, work today, work tomorrow, that kind of thing. So with the pandemic and with working from home, I really started thinking more about what happened to those dreams. I really wanted to do my MBA at some point. I think that was sometime in 2020. I ended up writing GRE, GMAT, and executive assessment. That deserves its own podcast, how that happened. I actually didn't apply to Columbia first because I felt like I had like roughly a year and a half experience at that point or thereabout. So I applied to this thing that was just starting its first year at the time, which was INSEAD's Masters in Management program, which was mainly focused at people with that sort of experience, like really either you're a recent grad or you have less than 2 years experience, and it's INSEAD. So I applied for that. I got in, but the way I got in was so haphazard. I did everything that you're not supposed to do as an international student, which was getting in at the very, very last round. No time for all these like visa and everything. And also it was the pandemic. There were so many things going on. And also I did not think about funding because they kept saying you don't have to think about funding, just apply. So I literally didn't think about funding. I just applied. And even though I got in, I couldn't go, both from a financial and like logistical perspective, but also because it was just terrible timing. So I didn't go. And it really, really pained me at that time because I was just like, my life is over. There was one other Nigerian in the class and I felt bad, like, oh no, I'm like leaving this person and they're going to be living their best life and I can't join them and everything. But yeah, I think it ended up being for the best because that year, Columbia organized this an information session with two alumni in Lagos, in McKinsey, Lagos. And I just happened to be around. I attended it and it was an amazing time. When I think about America or I think about the US in general, I think about New York and I think about California. And Columbia is, I mean, it is the Ivy League school in New York. I mean, from everything in the info session and with one of the alums who was there, her career path, her trajectory, it just felt like this is what I want for myself and this is what I want to do. And I mean, I already have the GRE since I've written it this year to go to INSEAD, which I didn't go to anymore. How can I position myself for this? Because this feels like what I really, really want. And I started driving everything towards Columbia. Next year in 2021, I felt like, okay, at this point, I am getting up on 3 years of experience. I started applying, but I never really finished. Oh no, that was in 2020. I started applying and I didn't finish off the back of that info session. In 2021, I actually applied. I applied really late and then I got the final admission in January of 2022, like acceptance of all and all that. And yeah, it was a great period of time. But then again, for this, and I felt like the inside experience was very helpful because one, it helped me to know what not to do in terms of how do I apply, when do I apply, and thinking about things beyond just, oh, let me just get accepted, because a lot of times that is the least of your worries, especially as an international student, but also as someone who needs funding. So that's the least of your worries, getting accepted. There's also the financial aspect. There's also logistics. How am I going to start moving? How am I going to start thinking about things in Nigeria that I need to wind down and things in the US that I need to start up and things like that. So yeah, it gave me more time to think about all the things. So I got accepted in January and the program itself started in August. So that was a lot of time, not a lot, but it was a good period of time to think about, to plan, to think about things, and even from a career perspective, because there are a lot of pre-MBA opportunities, things start and move very quickly. Even though it's for 2 years, the typical US MBA is for 2 years. It's still very dynamic. Like it doesn't feel like 2 years. Even now that I've finished 1 year, it's like I can't believe people actually do just 1 year because I don't. I feel like there are so many things that could possibly have not happened, and there are so many things I haven't done yet, and there are so many things that have moved so quickly. Even in terms of getting a job and all that, things move quickly. A lot of slots pre-MBA are gone by the time you start on campus in August because there are so many pre-MBA opportunities that start off from like around May till July. And nobody's going to like wake you up and say, hey, come and apply. It's like, if you know, you know. If you don't know, sorry. But it's not that bad anyway. It's not that terrible because I didn't do any pre-MBA opportunities. I actually left work. My last day of work was August 1st. And I wish I had given myself more of a buffer between that and resuming August 22nd in school. But even with that, I don't feel like I did too badly. So there are still a lot of opportunities on campus itself. And Columbia has just been, it's made me think about my life. And I think I relate more with the concept of finding yourself a lot more in terms of when people say that thing of, oh, I took a gap year to discover myself or find myself. I definitely relate with that. It's been learning different things as much as it has been learning about myself, learning about this new place I'm in terms of the country, but also in terms of the school, in terms of the new people that you meet. Columbia is so unique amongst like top business schools because over 50% of the student body consists of international students, which is a unique thing if you like compare statistics across those top 10 schools. The admissions and the faculty and everything kind of caters to the fact that we are coming from outside of America because that's what the overwhelming majority's experience is. So, and even looking at it in terms of the African student base, yeah, it has a very strong African community. I think even now we have the most number of Nigerians in terms of, at least my class, we have the most number of Nigerians coming from Nigeria. So that doesn't include like Nigerian Americans. amongst, again, the top business schools. So it has a very rich African student body as well. The experience, and of course, it's New York. Like New York is super diverse in terms of your experience. I feel like there's something for everyone at Columbia. It's been an amazing experience so far. I can't wait for my second year. I think I would always recommend Columbia because just the kind of help, the kind of experience, the kind of community, the kind of everything that I've experienced here has just been way more than I imagined. And I definitely owe a lot to the school, and I'm trying my best to contribute as well. And there are so many opportunities for that. You have a true community here, especially as an international student. And of course, the brand name definitely helps. The alumni community are super supportive, especially the African alumni community that I've personally benefited from and reached out to. So yeah, I have nothing but really positive things about my experience so far, and hoping that my second year is even better. Yeah.
Great, really, that's very impressive. I mean, after this, I'm just going to go and prepare for Columbia. Looking to the NBA
You are
in
the type.
Chikwebuka has sewed his umbilical cord in France. So
Well,
the jazz
I
that
mean,
will make him come to Colombia has to be very strong.
no, but I
Don't
mean,
go
I
and
feel
do
like,
it,
but
because
I mean, I've decided. I mean, I have I've checked and all that, and at the end of the day, it makes more sense for me to do my MBA in the US. Yes, so it's no worry. Yeah,
yes.
there's France. Do I want to leave and work in the US? I don't think so. I just want to experience something really different. And I'm just beefing a belly. I mean, I can't say that she's in the US, so I can't praise the US. A call we had earlier today, her network was just so horrible. I mean, so
Chikwebuka lives half of his life beefing me. After beefing me, he will still end up being my neighbor. That's just what I know. So I'm like, I'm not even going to bother myself.
you know this. It's just very possible
You
that
guys went to the same primary school,
The
and
same primary school, the same
I came to my
secondary
primary
school.
school and also
I
came to
had
my
to run
that's-
away because that was too much stalking.
okay, not same uni, not.
No, not the
no,
same uni.
So I went to UI and then
I went to the
know.
better school. I went to UNN.
Oh, okay, with the union. Okay.
Insist. Okay. Imade, post MBA now, what do you think? Where do you think life's journey will take you to? I'm sure the MBA is already equipping you with a lot of experiences and all that. Yeah. And interesting for finance. Why do you want to be in finance? What was the attraction?
I think the attraction has always been there. Even in law school, I remember very well when we were doing corporate law, and I still follow my corporate law lecturer on social media and all that. One of the topics that had me like the most animated was when we started talking about, there was the auditor topic, but we had to go in depth into accounting and finance because of the NASB standards and all that, Nigerian Accounting Standards Board. So yeah, that was really, really interesting. And I just really felt connected to that. And then of course with the VIM program, and yeah, I've just always been interested in finance itself. I was in private equity group at the law firm I worked at, and we did a lot of work with financial advisors, and it was just, they were just different. Like it was just a different vibe from all the other professional advisors. And so it was just, I really want to be in this. But I had also done an investment banking fellowship or experience, again, from all these types of opportunities online. And I knew it wasn't for me because it was a lot less client facing, which was a part about law that I deeply enjoyed. I enjoyed connecting with the client. I enjoyed this thing of, you talk to them, you know exactly their problems, you interface with them. With investment banking, it was a lot more Excel facing and a lot less you're directly dealing with clients that who you can you put a face to the problem, not exactly just numbers, figures, and outcomes. And so that was where I started thinking about, and I didn't really know anything about like asset management, wealth management, private wealth management before Columbia. It was really, so we had this in Colombia, there are always companies coming to present, always, 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 which is a weird shift from, oh, usually you would be the one trying to pitch to companies, but Now it's usually the other way around, where companies come and pitch to you, try and attract as many people as they can to come in and watch their presentations and stuff like that, ask questions, network in their offices and at dinners, breakfasts, things like that. So it was really at one of these types of sessions that the asset management group, it's called AWM, Asset and Wealth Management Group at Goldman, was in Colombia. And everything they described really resonated with me. It was a combination of finance and client-facing work, but also very strong on the need for law or some type of legal background. So a lot of people in the group that I work in also have like either a JD, which is that they went to law school, even if they didn't practice, or they actually did practice law, because a lot of this has to do with estate planning, succession planning, tax planning. I think the majority of managing wealthy people's money is avoiding tax in some way or form. And not just even in terms of transactions, but even in terms of the day-to-day shifting of the portfolio and the taxes that can incur knowingly, unknowingly, passing down wealth, estate taxes, things like that. So it's also, you also notice that a lot of people have legal backgrounds. So I felt like this is a way I can bring to bear the legal experience I have that I actually like. I don't hate law, and I never felt like, oh, I'm not good at this or something. But I actually felt like I can also be involved in core finance in this way. And I'm so glad, because it's been a great experience. And I would really love, ideally, to get my return offer at the end of the summer. And then that'll just be where I come back to after my MBA. So post MBA goal would be to work there in the same group that I'm in. If I have my way, that will be what happens.
Great. I mean, I'm certainly sure that's what would happen. I mean, yeah.
Amen.
Wishing you the best on that. Yeah, and I really resonate with what you say about being client facing. It really makes all the difference. Seeing the effect of your work. I mean, those doing the Excel facing work and all that, that's also great work. I mean, we can't really advance in this client facing work without what they do. But yeah, for me, and I think also the same for you, it really makes a lot of difference to face the client and understand, put a face to the problems. Yeah. I'll let Abele go ahead if she has some questions.
Sure. Listen, when people are having a great conversation, I love to listen. So that was me being an effective listener. And I also love what Imade shared. It gives a sneak peek into what every day in the life of someone who works in asset management at Goldman is. We also saw that, you have an experience, or you're currently an instructor at Yale. So, do you mind sharing with us in 3 sentences what that entails? What has that been like for you? What has the experience been?
Yeah, sure. So actually, it hasn't, anything that involves actually teaching right now doesn't start till the end of this month. So far it's been a whole lot of course prep. And one thing I've learned from that is when it comes to your lecturer or your professor, they probably know the material that they're recommending for you 10 times as much as you do, in terms of they know exactly everything that you're going to get. So it's been very in-depth. There's a lot of attention to detail. The Yale Young African Scholars is basically a prep program for students coming from Africa at Yale University to prepare them. They're high school students, and it's to prepare them for college at global universities like Yale. So it's mostly some of us who are grad students and some other Yale professors and affiliates that are in charge of the program, in charge of being like instructors. And you get to have 3, they call them seminars, but they're basically extended classes. Each one is meant to run for roughly almost 2 hours, so let's say like 90 minutes, and it's supposed to be on a topic that would be beneficial to them, and it goes through a lot of approvals, then of course assigning the materials, and a lot of pre-work in summary. So a lot of my topics are around, one is around technology in Africa, investing in technology in Africa. The other is around finance, And the third is around, I think that one is just supposed to be like a fun one. So it's about Afrobeats and the rise of Afrobeats and how we can make that have like economic benefits for Nigeria specifically, but Africa in general. And kind of giving a parallel to the rise of art in Art Basel and how that transformed the communities in Florida, and maybe how we can kind of mirror that. Apart from the seminars, there are lots of opportunities or lots of programs that are more informal in terms of mentorship for the students. There's a session called Family Time, which is meant to be something like, I guess, pouring your heart out in terms of being very real and vulnerable about like experiences that you've had, that you'd like to share and things like that. So there are just a lot of opportunities, and I'm mostly going to be doing the ones here in the US, but there's also an opportunity, I think this year it's in Rwanda, but there's an opportunity to where they go to an African country to also have this program. But that wasn't feasible for me, so I'm just doing the one here. So yeah, it's been a lot of, this is more than 3 sentences. But so far, it's just been a whole lot of pre-work in terms of preparing the course materials, preparing for what everyone is supposed to read and experience, not just in terms of articles and pre-readings and things like that, but also creating engaging media, so charts, presentations. In one case, I mean, with the Afrobeats one, there's like samples of music and all that, just to make it more interactive. Planning everything to the last letter. It's been insightful. This is like my first very, very academic teaching experience. So it's just interesting to get how that goes. And it's very interesting because, I mean, in the MBA, you do get a lot of pre-readings, case studies, things like that. And now I'm thinking, if this is a slice of what they had to go through as professors assigning that, they probably know everything that I'm reading back to front 10 times. So that's very interesting. And I would expect no less, but it's interesting to go through the process itself.
Definitely. I can imagine how beneficial it is to kind of have like a dual view of, okay, yeah, this is what it feels like to use academic materials, but also this is what it feels like to create them. And thanks for sharing your experiences and the focus of the work you do as an instructor. I found the part about the economic potential of Afrobeats very interesting. I don't know if you guys get to share the materials that you use ever, but if you ever work on a project and it becomes public, we'd really love to see some of it.
Sure, I can ask about it. Right now, it's still like in the approval processes, even now. So, but I'll definitely ask, especially when the program is over around August.
Okay. And I know that, we've been sharing stories of joy and high acceptance rates, even though you think they are not. But we are very certain that, as with everybody, the journey is not always rosy. So if you feel comfortable, do you mind sharing with us some of the challenges you've encountered on your journey, whether it's, becoming an instructor at Yale, or whether it's getting into Columbia, getting into Goldman?
Challenges. Yeah, definitely. There's this thing about like long-term stay. So for me, even though yes, I have traveled quite a bit, but I've never, I mean, before coming to Colombia and coming here in the US for an extended time, I've never like stayed out of Nigeria for more than 3 months at a go. So there were obviously a lot of things, and then I'd never gone that long without seeing like my parents, my family, things like that. So before you travel and before you, I guess, relocate, you do hear a lot about things like how difficult it is from a relational aspect and from an adjustment aspect. But because of the fact that you're going through a lot more serious things at the time, you're trying to find money to go to school, you're trying to find you're trying to secure your student visa and things like that. That's like the last thing you have to think about, how you're going to deal with that. But it's very real, and it didn't hit me until maybe around that 3-month mark. So I came in August, September, it was great. This place is so nice. Everything is so nice. October, it was great. From November, especially from mid-November, and that just coincided with the winter, when winter really started to kick in. it was so, I just started getting depressed. Not depressed like suicidal, but depressed like sadness that doesn't go away, and it's just clouding you, and you're just thinking about it like, I'm so tired, and I'm so stressed out. And yes, there's a community there and everything, and I thank God for that community, just of people who are ready to understand. But at the end of the day, when you go to bed at night, you can't share that with anybody. It's just you. It's just you. Like, now a lot of things that you're going through are just going to be just you. And it wasn't like that a lot, because when I would feel like that, even in Nigeria, I mean, I live around my family, I live around my brother. So it it was a weird feeling, having to feel like the best that people can really tell you is, oh, they'll be there for you and you can call them if you need anything. And yeah, of course, you call them if you need anything. But at the end of the day, you are going to actually face this thing alone. And it's just so scary. And I was not used to that. It was really depressing. And the thing that made me get out of that, because it was terrible at some point, I wasn't really eating. That was like when things were really bad. I think that was around December. I wasn't really eating. I wasn't really interested in things. And I think what compounded it more was the fact that, I mean, I've studied law all my life, and this was my first time studying these very quantitative concepts, very quantitative courses, and very business related courses. So things like macroeconomics, things like also microeconomics, things like corporate finance at a very granular level. And then everybody in class, this is my first time studying it, but for most people in class, this is what they number one, this is what they've studied, but also this is what they've been doing for the past 4 or 5 years on a day-to-day basis. So it just feels like, oh, this is rice and beans for everybody else. But for me, it's like I have to take it so slowly and so step by step, and it starts to affect you, like, oh, am I the dullard of the class because people are breezing through this and not even asking any questions, but I am quite confused. So you start feeling like, oh, am I the problem? But of course not. Like, everybody has different experiences. It just feels that way at first. Yeah, that's obviously in hindsight. When you're going through it, it doesn't feel that straightforward. It just feels like something else to think about. And then everything is so fast with the MBA, and it's so at once. And they always call it like drinking from a fire hose. And I think that's just the general MBA experience, especially in the US, because at the same time, you're thinking about careers, which is companies are coming to campus, and you need to think about how you're going to schedule your coffee chats, which are a big thing. And you need to think about applications, the interview process, the prep process. All of this is going on. Deadlines for the summer programs are as early as October to January. So and then you're coming in August. So it's not like you have a whole bunch of time to just sit down and think. You have to be up and doing. And then you're also thinking about academics, because these are very hard courses, and it's not like you can just breeze through things like, oh, it's just whatever. There are regular assessments almost every day. There are like coursework, assignments, team projects, team write-ups, things like that. And then you're also dealing with like community expectations, because the MBA program is very heavy on that. So join this club or that club, this professional club, that professional club, this community focus club. What are you going to do? How are you going to? So at the end of the day, I had to block out one, which is for a lot of time, especially in my very first semester, I did not do a lot of community things because academics was on my neck, and career, which ultimately I came here for, is on my neck. So something has to give somewhere. But I'm happy that in the next semester, that was the spring semester from January till around like March, April, I was able to do so much more in terms of community. But at that time that was from like November to December, it was choking. It was a very bad time for me. It was a very low time for me mentally and emotionally. And I think what really helped was that December, like right before Christmas, I went home to Lagos, and actually I went to Abuja, and then I went to Lagos for a bit. But all in all, I was able to see my family. And I think when I returned in January, that gave me the boost that has just been carrying me since then. And yeah, when I came back to New York, honestly, it's been all the way up since then. I think it was just that period and just that adjustment that was really rough, but getting in the groove of things, and it has never gotten that bad. Sometimes I do think, oh my God, I miss this food, or I want this food that's just not available. And it just feels weird, but at the same time, it's not that depressing. It's not even depressing at all compared to times in November, December. Okay, I think the next time I felt a bit of that was moving to San Francisco, and I moved May. I got here May. And at first I was, again, and I think this is just maybe a pattern with me or how I respond to things or sudden changes in the environment. At first it was like, oh, I'm going to do this tourist thing, see the bridge, see this one, and I was happy, and everything was really calm and cool and everything. But then I started feeling like, where am I? Like, what am I doing? Because one, everything that I had gotten used to in terms of, oh, now I'm in New York and I know how to do this. If I need this, I do this. Right next to me is this. And then obviously the school is just like a bus drive away. That is gone now. I'm literally on my own. Also, I had like an uncle upstate in New York. Now, here in California, I don't have anybody. So I was like, I'm really on my own. And then there was one night I came back to my apartment and everywhere was super dark because I came back really late. And I was like, if something happened to me, like if I fell or I just had like some kind of crazy injury or accident, I would literally have nobody to call, like nobody that I knew was around or something. Because I just called I think that was like my first 2 weeks there, and I was just like, I don't really know anybody yet here. So I just felt like everything I'd been trying to build in New York in terms of community and familiarity and competence in knowing how to do what, where to get what, I had just fallen back to level zero. And that threatened to depress me. Like, and also the time difference is crazy. It's like 8 hours from Nigeria. So it's hard to even talk to family, very close friends. It's 3 hours from New York, which is not so bad, but considering the fact that it's New York and I was just there, and now it's like there's a bit of distance, it just adds to the feeling of isolation. So for a while, like for maybe the first 2 weeks, I did feel isolated, but it helped. I mean, I had a friend in LA, and he came around and we did like a tour of the different parks in San Francisco. And I would say San Francisco is beautiful. Like, I don't care what anybody says about this one, that one. Yes, there are homelessness issues, definitely. And yes, things can be a lot better, and there are definitely issues, but it's a beautiful place. It's prettier than New York. I stand by that. Right from the airport, it's just a finer place to be in. So yeah, doing that, I think from then on I've never felt bad about it till now. And then obviously starting work and then also being able to make some more friends that are here and go out and just start building some type of community here for as long as I'm here. Yeah, it's been very helpful. And I think that's just it. It's just hard because a lot of things right now are in a state of flux, which I'm just not used to. The only type of moving I've ever really done has been moving from Benin to Lagos, which it wasn't really a crazy move because I moved to Lagos for university. So it's not, I haven't really, my adult life, I've never really done this type of move before. It's across continents, it's across cultures, it's across things that I'm familiar with. And I feel like I should give myself more slack. It's apparently a common experience for people to feel down, but maybe it's especially with moving, but it's sometimes you don't feel comfortable talking about it because, oh, you are supposed to be in a privileged position where you can even make these types of moves, right? It's kind of ungrateful for you to complain about it. Nobody is trying to feel bad about the person with so many opportunities that they can move. But it's not necessarily for anybody to feel bad or anything. It's just a reality. And it may not be the most immediate reality. Like the thing I was thinking about was how can I get money for school and how can I get my visa and how can I park and how can I... In my head, I was like, oh yeah, there's this issue, there's depression, but I will survive. And yeah, I've survived, but I wish I had prepared more mentally for it. You don't just leave somewhere that you've known continuously all your life and not feel anything. And maybe there's space to talk about that somewhere in a way that can kind of be a safe space for people. Or maybe not. Maybe you should just talk about it with your friends and call it day. But yeah, I do feel like that's my most recent low period because especially in December, the one in San Francisco wasn't even so bad because it wasn't as bad as the one in December anyway. The one in November, December was terrible and it just compounded with winter. I physically felt it. Like, I don't know. I didn't know that. I haven't experienced it in a while where your mental state is affecting you physically. Like, you can feel how heavy it is to walk, to lift yourself, and then you're not eating, and then you're actually feeling physical pain. It's terrible. It's not how life should be. It's just, but yeah, I think when you just are able to connect with people, or especially in my case, when I went back to Lagos and it was just a refortifying type of thing. I haven't felt that way since. I was scared that when I came back, that would last me another 3 months yet again. But yeah, we're in July now, we're past 6 months, and I haven't felt any type of way since then. So I think I'm really fine. And I think everybody will be fine in the end. It can just be hard at first, and people shouldn't take it to mean that there's something wrong with them. Clearly, this is something that happens with most people and it's expected and it's normal. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'm really sorry to hear that you had that rough patch in December. I think
Yeah.
people underestimate seasonal depression, especially like when you tell Nigerians about depression, they laugh because everybody thinks it's funny, especially loneliness. Like every time people talk about loneliness on Twitter, it's always, oh yeah, now if you don't tire, come back. And I'm like, beautiful. Everybody,
And
we don't worry.
the fact that you can actually be lonely even when you have a lot of people around you, because
Yeah.
it's at the end of the day, you're still on your own. Like you still have to do all these things on your own. You're opening your bank account. Nobody's going to follow you there and hold your hand. I mean, maybe they can, but generally, like everything is actually, you're facing these things on your own, even when there are people around you. And it's hard to understand loneliness from that aspect because like, oh, just go out and make friends. Yeah, you're doing that. It's also difficult to complain about because in a way, it can feel like this is reflecting negatively on you, like maybe you're not doing something right. But also, it can feel like, oh, you are coming in with school, you should feel like you have a buffer. And it actually does give you a buffer because I imagine this would be like 10 times worse if I was just coming here and I had to start going straight to looking for work or to going to the office and you don't even know anybody or anything. At least with school, last you go to somebody's office and ask them about how do I get this in America. Again, it's very tailored to international students, so it's very normal. So I'm just thinking, if I didn't have all these resources or maybe people I can speak to, or even just the fact that there are a lot of students like me around who are going through the same thing. We also don't know this place. If I was just on my own, it would probably just have been worse. So yeah, I just think people underestimate that. And it's not necessarily, I think it's just something that will naturally happen. It's just because maybe we think, okay, Nigeria has its problems and all that, but at the end of the day, it's been a part of you for better or worse. And just to say that it can be very jarring to just be in a very different place very suddenly, and that's fine, and that's not anybody's fault. Like it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It's just normal. And communicating with people and having people that will help you out of it, in terms of, for me, that was family and also my friend here in California. So people that can just help bring you out of it. You may not need anything more than that. So far, I haven't really needed anything more than that. But also the importance of therapy, because there are resources that I didn't even think to know about until recently, because we're trying to prepare now for the new first year MBA students, and we're doing like a peer advisor thing, and we're trying to get like resources to tell them about. And it's just now that I'm discovering that, oh, there are this many like mental health resources. I didn't even think to ask about that because I just naturally assumed that you're on your own. But there are so many resources around you that you may not even, and may not just be the people you know. It could also just be the school you're in. At work, it can be, does work provide any type of health insurance that can cover therapy and all that? Because it can just be important to have someone to talk to in a guilt-free environment that can actually give you professional advice about how to handle these things instead of just freestyling. So yeah, I think people should know that it's not a bad thing. It's a very normal thing. If you don't feel any type of way about leaving somewhere that you've lived all your life, that's the abnormal thing. So yeah, it's not bad, and you should just talk to people as much as even if it's uncomfortable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Imade. And also,
Yes.
you keep talking about where to settle. This is me telling you about the DMV. I don't know why nobody ever thinks of here. Everybody's always like New York, San Francisco. New York is a crazy place. How do you guys survive there? But that's a conversation for another, for an
But
entirely different podcast.
I'm actually looking into the DMV. Funny enough, I was there for like a week before I came to Kaif, and I was like, I can't believe this place has so many young people. Because when you think about DC, you're always thinking about, oh, it's probably like a lot of stuffy old people in government and everything. But it has a lot of young people, it has a lot of Black people. And I was like, I need to be here. Like, it was a nice place. So it's definitely on my list. Yeah.
It's the place to be. Chibubuka, are you still with us?
Yes, yes, I am.
We miss your
So,
voice.
can you hear me?
Oh.
Yes, we can. You can hear you now.
Okay.
Don't be awing at us. We are just trying to pretend to be normal for 2 seconds.
Okay. Thank you very much, Made. It's been, and I mean, so sorry this has lasted this long, but I guess it's been very interesting. So just
Yeah.
as we begin to end, so this typical cliche question: what would be your advice to a younger Imade and maybe younger girls as they begin their journey through life, through their career and personal branding? What would you advise?
I will give very practical career advice because that early career stage is very weird. And I think a lot of it is also sometimes you feel like you're not getting the respect that, yeah, you're very disrespected. Yeah, that tends to be it. That's why someone can come online and be telling you that a student intern, you should even be paying the company because you're learning or some other BS. So there's a lot of disrespect. Yes, people said it. People defended it as crazy. So there's a lot of disrespect that comes with being an early career professional, recent grad, maybe less than 1 year of experience. So I would just say be very ruthless and focused about building up leverage as an early career professional. And the best type of leverage, or the most direct type of leverage to get, is quality experience. So not just years in the seat, but quality. So a lot of times you see people that actually do take those unpaid internships and don't just be, oh, I'm going to take this unpaid internship and after this they're going to retain me. No, probably not. And if they do, it's probably a toxic workplace. Keep all of these things in mind. Like, be strategic. If you know you're going to lower yourself, quote unquote, to take these types of things because you know what the experience can do for you, you should be prioritizing yourself in terms of, so it's just like you're talking to someone in terms of you guys are friends or something, or it's a potential friendship and you know the person just wants to use you, but you know what you want to use the person for. And I'm sorry to put it in that context, but my point is just be very ruthless about how you're going to get leverage, because until you have that leverage, you continue to be kind of disrespected. Your value is not going to be respected. Also, another thing to consider is specialization, or having a very particular skill set. So you see people specializing, or they're very concentrated in things that are not really things. So you see some things like, oh, operations. Operations is great. I'm not trying to down anybody, but it's not a specific skill set. And it's very, you see people saying things like, oh, you can be a generalist. You can, but it's not safe. I'd rather be a specialist first and then be a generalist, because at least you have something to fall back on. And then you see a lot of people with very generalist roles, things like chief of staff. It can be anything you want it to be. So try and avoid those things for now and focus on having a very hard and specific skill set. matched with quality experience in that skill set, even if you're eventually going to transition away from it, it's something that can always be brought up as this person is quality, they've done this for this years. And it doesn't take anything. Once you have those 3 to 5 years quality experience in a specific skill set or domain area, nobody in this life and the next can take it away from you. Nothing can change that. Nobody can say, I'm going to remove it from your CV because I don't like you. It's there and it's there. And also let it be backed up by substance. And don't let it just be packaging on the CV because you're in a nice place, even though you're not doing anything tangible. It should also ideally be backed by you actually know your stuff so that you just completely seal the deal with that. I think that avoids a lot of the issues with your early careers. Like I've been through it myself, which is people feel like they're doing you a favor by hiring you because you don't have experience. It's not a great place to be in, but always have your fallback, your thing that is your thing, and have quality experience to match that.
Great. Thank you very much. Those were really spot on and practical.
Yeah,
Really
sure. No
good.
problem. No problem.
Okay, so first of all, I realized that we missed one of the most important questions. And so I'm going to kind of throw us back by like 3 questions before we end. But a major focus of this series is to highlight ways that current grad students are impacting their immediate community through campaigns or causes that they are passionate about. And through our conversation today, and even just through our research when we found you, we understand that access to education is something that's very important to you. So do you mind sharing with us 2 of your most important projects that you've been able to impact your immediate community, whether it's with resources or with the framing of the mindset, like you talked about earlier, that provides them with more opportunities or access to education?
Right. So for me, one of those is through Junior Achievement Africa and specifically Junior Achievement Nigeria. Junior Achievement Worldwide is one of the biggest NGOs that focuses on youth education. So everything from the issues you spoke about, access to quality education, financial literacy, entrepreneurial skills. In Africa, we've reached like 1 million people or 1 million young people as of last year. This year, that should be even more. And in Nigeria, we have a lot of flagship programs. I guess the most popular one is Venture in Management program. There's also the company program, which is it takes secondary school students through a 16-week program, start to finish, starting, developing and launching their own company or program. And then you compete nationally, regionally, and then there's the company program Africa, which is a regional competition up with the national winners. There's also Lead Africa, which is for young girls, a program for young girls to have like a program where they develop skills and learn from successful women around them. So yeah, we have a lot of programs for young people. I think VIMP is the oldest class of people that Junior Achievement caters to, and that's for core members. Usually the target groups are around secondary school age or thereabout. I've always worked with Jans as like a volunteer, teaching in schools and with the company program as well. Now I'm president of the Alumni Association. One thing that we're prioritizing is how we're going to get more impact for Jan, more impact spotlighted about what Jan does and how we're going to have more impact for people, not just with as members of Junior Achievement, but also the broader national community of young people. And one way that we're going to do that is through a career fair, a job fair that is specifically aimed at early career young people. So all kinds, and this is already done at VIM because I remember this was one of the things that happened. So companies, great companies like KPMG, other big 4 firms, McKinsey, BCG, Shell, Schlumberger, all these kind of very reputable companies come in and they give you presentations, answer questions, and you generally get a sense of what you need to do to get into these companies, get exposure, get access to information, but you also get practical information separately from these company presentations about, oh, this is how you optimize your LinkedIn and this is how you build your resume from the perspective of an early career person. So this is graduate trainee, entry level. which is a group that maybe may not have a lot of access to information and definitely does not have as much experience. So we really need to cater to people. And a lot of the problem is access to information. And with companies, they value this because those entry-level programs are really how they nurture talent. So a lot of their current management C-level staff were brought up through these programs. So for them, the hope is that they can get as many quality people as they can into these programs, and a good percentage of them stay and climb through the ranks and eventually become leadership in these companies. And then obviously from the perspective of the candidates, that's the young people, entry-level people, this is a great way to access information. Also a great way to network with these companies, a great way to start preparing for the interview, start preparing for the recruitment processes, because if your profile matches, if you consent, you can have your CV sent to them directly ahead of the job fair. And you can have like a more closed door meeting with them that will be more specific, tailored to your individual candidacy. So yeah, it's going to be beneficial to people. And yeah, we're also just thinking about how to spotlight more of the work that Jan does. This is the 20th or 21st year anniversary of VIMP. So many people who are alumni of Junior Achievement Nigeria are business leaders today. So many people who are doing so many amazing things in not just Nigeria, but generally Africa, the world, are Jan alum. So we want to really spotlight these people and see how we can get the community to even drive more impact nationally, even with non-members, how we can attract more people. That's junior achievement, and that's what I'm focused on there. Secondly, I'm developing or currently raising for a scholarship that is specifically for African women going to business school. So yeah, just working on that as well. But that's just the first iteration. And the second iteration of it is not just going to be a scholarship, which I feel like is more of a grant or somewhat like charity. The second iteration of it, and what I hope that it develops into, what I'm trying to make it develop into, is more of an education focused type of fund. So funding things like education infrastructure, funding things like student loans. So not just purely philanthropic, but also with a strong commercial return aspect as well. But with this situation is really just to see what we can launch in the shortest period of time, which is this scholarship. And then from the feedback that we get, we can now raise from like corporate sponsors and things like that for the first iteration of that private fund. So really just thinking about how we can address education related issues from an investment and financing perspective. So yeah, those are the two things. One, junior achievement. Two, the scholarship that I'm working on, which is tentatively called Future Women Africa Scholarship, because on one hand, it's kind of divided into two. The first half of the scholarship is for women coming from Africa to go to business school. The second half of the scholarship is for young students, young girls in Africa who should be funded to have a quality education in Africa. And for the first iteration, that is going to look more like funding for public education infrastructure at the basic education level. So yeah, those are the two things I'm currently working on. And by the time this podcast is out, they will probably have matured and we can talk more about it at that time too.
That's super impressive. Really well done.
Thank you. Thanks.
Great. Ebele, do you want to say something?
So I feel like if I say something, I'm going to speak too much. But the project you talked about is very impressive. And I was about to go on and on about the work we do at GAC Foundation, because yes, like the scholarship is likewise for us a first step. We don't think that NGOs can, in the long run, take the role of the government in providing quality access to education. So we're very interested in longer term, more sustainable approaches to learning, and not just formal learning, but even in terms of like skills and vocation. And one of the things that our focus, like long-term focus, is also on is especially like policy change. In addition to tech, which you guys talked about, I didn't want to overflog it when you guys initially brought it up. Tech's a big thing for me. I feel like people talk about DFS and it's always high-tech DFS that works on 4G, but what happens to people who are connected on 2G? So very excited to talk about all of these various areas that intersect at some point with you. And yeah.
Sure, it sounds very interesting. I would really love to especially learn about the work that you're doing and with the policy changes and everything. Very interesting.
Thank you. Ibuka.
Yes. Well, I think it's been an amazing time chatting with you, Imade. Thank you very much. How can our listeners connect with you? Where can they connect with you? What are your handles on your preferred platforms?
Sure, I'm Imade Iyamu on LinkedIn, Imade Iyamu on Twitter. Connect anywhere. I'm probably more reachable on Twitter just because it's a more laid back environment than LinkedIn.
Indeed. LinkedIn can be
Yeah.
depressing at times.
Yeah. I think somebody said LinkedIn is like the professional conference and Twitter is like the bar that you and your guys go to afterwards where you really actually connect, not the conference.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. This has been a great conversation and I didn't expect to have this much fun, but yeah, it was great. Yeah, you guys are nice.
Thank you. But you guys, you know what? We didn't thank our listeners, eh? Chukwuebuka, Imade, and I would also like to say thank you to the listeners who have stayed with us till this point. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Remember to reach out to Imade. And if you have any questions for Grad School Buddy, feel free to reach out to us via our email or Twitter account.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you to everyone listening. Have a great day or night.
Thank you.